Hello and welcome to another episode of the Indian LCHF show, and I am Nachi Ladaras.
I'm Tina.
Today we have a very interesting topic, which is our story. So it is interesting for us, and hopefully it will be interesting for you. We are excited to share our LCHF journey story with you. Hopefully this will be encouraging, motivating, learning, and useful for you. So let's get started, Tina.
Yeah. How this all started was we were both overweight. I was just fat probably, but Nachi was obese. Why don't you tell us a bit about that? Since you're always asking me the questions and I'm answering. Now this time you tell me how did you become obese? What happened? What did you do? And how it felt.
So I've not been. I was not as a kid. I was not obese or overweight. I was quite fit in school. So as a young guy, but I also played football. So I played football. I was very active. So I was also into bodybuilding and so on as a young guy. So I didn't have much of a problem with fitness as a young person. But after college, things started slowing down. Your activities slow down. No sports, and you know how it is. Engineering and doctor. Those are the two things in our time. Now it's becoming better, but those days you either became a doctor or an engineer. And I grew up in a house full of doctors. They wanted me to become a doctor, but I ended up becoming an engineer. But so studies was everything. So not much of sports. So after college, I started putting on weight, and more so because I think I thought at that time that it was because of the sports. So I didn't play sports, and things started getting slow in my life. So I started putting on weight. But now I know that was not the only reason. That I was a heavy carb eater. I grew up in the birthplace of biryani, which is Dindukal. So Talapakati biryani was all that we had. You can even have biryani early in the morning, for breakfast. So it was all food. It's a small town, but food was big. That's why it gave birth to some of the iconic carb food, which is very tasty, by the way. So I grew up like that, and so I think it was the carbs that constantly kept me adding on more and more weight. And then I started working, and I had busy jobs. So again, not much of activity. So that kind of added to it. So by the time we came to this point, long story short, where we had to look at an option was I was 127 almost, and 127 kilos, which was a lot of kilos. And I started having back pains, and I mean, I thought I was okay, but because I didn't have like a heart problem or anything, or I didn't have any physical discomforts other than I didn't have medical discomfort, but I did have a lot of physical discomfort. I didn't have any medical problems. But we soon started seeing our friends, because we were in our late 30s. So we started seeing a lot of problems with our friends. People are starting to get admitted in hospitals. One of them had a heart attack, and he was taken to the hospital. He was like our age group. And that kind of, I think Tina will tell you a little bit of story. But from my perspective, it was overweight was becoming a problem with me, with my looks, and also just not being energetic. That's something I can't deal with, because I like to be energetic. I am basically a very energetic person. I like to do a lot, and that was a big problem for me. The energy levels were very low, and my self-esteem was like very low, and I knew it was not healthy in the long run.
Yeah, and not mentioning the discomforts and digestion problems, and not really big medical issues, but so many small things. I remember you used to say, I'm when I get a flight of stairs, my back ache is worsening. My knee pain is, I'm getting a little discomfort in my knee and stuff like that. So there was this point when he was really really obese, and nothing seems to work. We've paid gym memberships, we've gone on and off, and we've tried this, and we've tried different kinds of food. We had tried don't eat after 7 p.m. And all these filler drinks instead of meals. Remember how much money we went and
Yeah.
paid for all those drinks? Boxes and boxes of powders which you
All
mix
this
into a drink, and then you
food replacements.
replacement drinks. You don't eat food, you drink this, and then lime juice with sugar and honey in the morning, and
Gym membership. I'm sure we paid thousands and thousands of rupees for gym memberships. Yeah.
So, and then we've tried cycling. We got our cycles in shape, and then we tried cycling. We just tried just about everything, but nothing goes beyond a certain time, because all these things include a lot of willpower without any hormonal change. See, at the end of the day, willpower can only take you so far. Your body is based on hormones. So none of this was working. And our friend, after he had recovered from his heart attack, made Nachi take a complete
Master
health checkup. And during that health checkup, the doctor said his numbers and his everything was fine as of now, but he had to reduce weight. He didn't have any major problems according to the tests that were taken at that time.
So we were nearing 40. So every doctor,
35.
Yeah. So every doctor that we that checked, that I went for a checkup with, it was like in Master Health Checkup, you go to the hospital and you go department wise, right? You go to the X-ray and ECG and one by one, and after every test you will go sit with that doctor or the person who's going to give you the input related to that test. So after my ECG heart checkup, and then after my health, one particular department, every time the doctor would say, you are fine now, and one doctor literally said, it's a grace of God, it's a surprise that with your weight you are fine now, but he told me, but I promise you, when you get to 40, if you do not reduce your weight, all this will come. I mean, whatever you're fearing, like blood pressure, diabetes, all of this will come. He actually said that. He said that, I promise you, it will come if you do not reduce weight. So that kind of shook me up, and I heard that again and again in different forms from the doctors. So I really appreciate those doctors who put the fear of God in my heart, saying, as you get closer to 40, if you don't watch out, you're in trouble. I was in trouble. I mean, now we look back, and with all our knowledge, current knowledge, we know that some of the numbers that they went by were not
some of the tests
high,
and some of the numbers that make it seem like normal, and you're not actually normal.
Like sugar levels? Or
no, insulin levels. For
insulin.
Example, people look at sugar levels and say you look fine, but actually the insulin level should have been
measured.
Taken. If they were measured and they were seen, then probably everybody would have said, boss, you're already in trouble, So anyway, because we were looking at the symptoms then, we didn't really know. Anyway, so that was his side of the story, where we were trying all our best to get him to lose weight. I was also overweight for my height, but more importantly, my blood sugar numbers were not good. When I was 34, it was 7, and at that time my brother said, reduce your weight and maybe we could put off diabetic medication for some more years, but I could not reduce weight. And then when I was 35, my HbA1c was 7.5. Previously the previous year it was 7, then the next year it became 7.5, and I was about 67 kilos at that time. And again, my brother said, see, you have to take this seriously. He's a doctor, and he said, you have to reduce your weight somehow, and otherwise you will be on chronic medication for diabetes. Now, my mother at this time was a diabetic patient for about 20 to 25 years. So she told me, see, try and not get on medication for diabetes, because it's such a horrible condition to have. When you look from the outside, it looks like you're normal. It's not like this debilitating sickness that people look at you and say, oh my God, this person is sick. It's not like it's like a physical disability or something like that. You look normal, but on the inside, it's just destroying you step by step. And you're constantly thinking about your medicines and your tablets, and even though it's not much discussed about, and but people with diabetes don't have just diabetes. A range of other complications come along with it. So, and you're just 35, so I don't wish this for you. So you should do something about this. Try not to, get it. And both she, you might have seen her video, and I are of the mindset that we should be healthy, that we should be medicine free, that God, we are believers of God, and we thought God wants us to have a healthy life. God wants us to have an optimal life in which we can fulfill his purposes. I believe that all of us are created for a purpose, and that we do something uniquely that only each of us can do. And in order to do that, we have to be healthy, and God wishes good health for us. We should be free of sickness, we should be free of chronic medication, and we should have the freedom and liberty to fulfill our purpose. So that was also on my mind, and I said, I don't want to be on, because once you start taking diabetic medication, then comes along hypertension, then you have to be on hypertension medication, and then comes along heart disease in some form, then you have to be on heart disease medication, and then so many other things. And as I read further and further, so anyway, at this point I thought, okay, we need to get rid of this weight, and I don't want to have become a slave to medicines all my life. So I thought, okay, let me find out how we can lose weight. And thank God for technology and the internet. I went and searched on the internet. As much as they say, the internet doesn't have a medical degree and all of that, and I really respect a medical degree. We have a lot of doctors in our family, and I respect every professional degree. A nutritionist or a dietitian or an engineer or anything, and education is all of it, is everything. But at the same time, there are certain factors that influence our education, and probably when it becomes an industry, and things change. And then when there are answers out there which are more accessible. See, what the internet does today is it gives us access. So I went and searched for answers. I went and searched for answers from the common man, from people who had exercised and said, okay, this is what works, from people who had tried this diet and said, this works, this is a problem I had in this diet gave me this issue, this diet was advantageous for these reasons, this has this disadvantages, and these advantages and these disadvantages, these benefits and these pluses and these minuses. And there's so many comparative studies and people's experiences on the internet. And after reading a lot about many different kinds of diets, I came to the conclusion that at that time it was more popularly known as the Atkins diet. So I realized that many other diets, like the low-fat diet, eat less, exercise more, and calorie restriction, had good results for a short period of time. They gave results immediately, and you could hold them on for some time, but that they did not give long-term results. But the Atkins diet, now known better as the LCHF diet or the ketogenic diet, had results that were long-lasting. So people who lost their weight were able to sustain their weight loss. And people whose diabetes and pressure numbers had come down were able to maintain those lower numbers. So that was what got me hooked to read more about it. I thought that's what we want. We want something that lasts long, because we had tried these other things.
I think this long-lasting thing is a very important factor for you to consider in anything, because especially with weight loss, because it's very easy to just go to the gym, and because I've done it personally, I wanted to talk about that, because I can lose weight very quickly. So I can go and work out, because I love working out, I love going to the gym. So I would do that, and then I would lose weight, and then I would quickly gain it back. And now the gaining back is not really a pleasant thing, because when you lost weight, you felt so good, you told everybody looked at you and said, oh, super, you look fantastic, and you got very happy about it. And then when you put that weight back on, it made you feel worse than what you were before, because now they're not saying anything. At least, in our circles, they're just nice people. So they wouldn't say, but they look at you, you know what they're thinking. They're like, oh no, he's put on his weight again, And most of the time it's all good, well wishing. But, so it was important. And by the time we got to this place, it was, we were I was at least frustrated with going up and down, so it was not a good thing. So we and I want to especially speak to the ones who are listening to us, who has been either going through this or you have not started. I want to tell you, don't go into that route. Don't go into something that's temporary, that will put your weight back on, or not just for weight, even diabetes and other things. Don't look for temporary solutions. So very important point. Yeah, sorry for jumping in. Yeah.
So this is where we were going up and down, and we read this, and I thought, and as I read about it, I then realized that we are under the impression that if we get diabetes, it's just diabetes, it can be managed, it can be treated. I read this word diabetes management, and I'm like, what manage? Seriously, it just gets worse. It never gets better. So what management are we doing if it just gets worse? It's managing us. As I read about it, I realized that so long I had been under the impression that it's just diabetes. All you need to do is just pop a little pill before, once in the morning and once in the evening, and you're fine. And then it goes on. Life, you can do everything like you used to. Life continues to be normal. I've seen with my mother that life doesn't continue to be normal. First of all, you're always thinking of medication. How is life normal if you have to think of medicines twice a day or thrice a day? And those medicines keep on increasing, and then at one point you'll have to do insulin shots. And then you're thinking, oh my God, I have to eat now because I've taken the medicine. What if I get hypoglycemia in the night? So it's not normal to take medicines all your life. So as I was reading various people's experiences, and I was reading more into the complications that arise due to diabetes, I realized that diabetes doesn't come alone. It comes with its companions of hypertension and heart disease, and a host of various other problems, cardiovascular disease, nerve damage, and then there's kidney damage, there's eye damage. I've known people who have diabetes, and then all of them have eye problems as well, and then foot damage, then there's skin problems, yeast infections, fungal infections, dementia, which is associated with insulin resistance, and then finally Alzheimer's. They now call it type 3 diabetes. At one stage you end up there. And I thought, that's not where I want to be. That's not where I want to be. I want to be a healthy person and be available for my family, for my children, for my spouse. I thought, no, that's not a picture of, that's the real picture. That's the picture that most people will ultimately end up in. But that's not the picture that's given. The picture that's given is it can be managed, life will be fine. But, most people end up like this. And probably the previous generation didn't have much trouble, at least here in South Asian countries or whatever. But now for the past 10 years or so, India has been kind of called the diabetes capital, and our processed food intake is very high. Our sugar content intake is very high compared to our parents' generations. So I can kind of see that all this could have happened to me if I had continued in the path that I was going on. So anyway, I thought, I'm on a fast track to death, and that's not what I want to be. So let me try this. And I had two choices at this time. I could continue and try my best, and then I would anyway be on medication, and all of this would have happened. And the other thing was, I could stop and say, okay, let me try and do something else, which not many people have been doing. And then there is enough scare on the internet as well. If you go on the LCHF diet, you'll die soon, you'll get this, you'll die, you'll get that. How can high fat be good, and all that stuff. So that's there as well. But the reason I'm taking you through this my journey of how I made this decision is because I know many of you will be facing a dilemma. I'm sure you would have been exposed to many kinds of diets and many kinds of things, but there are questions in your mind, and I want to share with you the questions that I had, so that if you have them, they could help you.
Yeah, I think we're just about to run out of time. So, we could go into some of the questions in the next part 2, or maybe even have part 3, because I know this is going to be useful for many people. So, are there any closing thoughts you have, Tina? You want to wrap up something that you've started? I know you have a lot.
I don't want to wrap up.
Want to wrap up.
I just started talking. You're a... Anyway, okay. So I'll finish with this thought, and we'll continue with this in the next session. So I had to stop. I was at crossroads. I had to stop, and I had to think, am I going to continue doing what hasn't worked, but what I feel comfortable with? That's my comfort zone. I've been trying and trying, and I've seen people trying, and it's everybody's comfort zone. It doesn't work, but that's okay. It's everybody's comfort zone. Here I am going to try something about which not much information is available. There is a lot of scaremongering as well. There was enough information for me to make an informed choice. That much I can tell you. But it was scary because nobody I knew personally was doing it. There wasn't anybody to whom I could, pick up my phone and say, hey, buddy, you've been doing this. How has it worked out for you? So at that point, I thought, okay, let me get out of my comfort zone, and let me try this for some time. I will try this for 3 to 4 months, and if it doesn't work out, I'll go back. But then if it works out, it's a good thing for me. So if it doesn't work out, what's the worst case? I'll be in the same position where I am, in the same rut. But if it works out, I've taken a step, I've moved away from where I am. So that's how I took that decision. We'll continue in the next episode.
I think that's an important thing to think about. We'll talk about that more as we start our next show. But it's important to think, this is where I am, and there seems to be no other choice. Now, if I don't do this, I either continue to be here, or I can explore that option and move forward. See, that spirit of exploration, that spirit of moving forward and trying something to make things happen, that is what, if you look back at history, that is what has made humanity what we are. I mean, new countries were founded like that. I can go into many details. New discovery was made like that. Human beings are made to be like that. We are made to explore new options when we are stuck with, in a corner. So, great thought to think about as we close this. Thank you for being with us. Hope you enjoyed this. We'll continue talking next show as we release it. So don't miss that as we move forward. And if you have any questions, send it to us. You can leave a comment, or you can email us podcast@indianlchf.com. We'll see you next week with another episode on Indian LCHF show. And God bless you. Stay safe. Stay healthy.
Bye.